Hello and welcome to Michael Pepper Tech. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Apple MagSafe battery pack and kind of the experience I had with it, the battery life I got with it, and kind of get into some numbers here, but also talk about how it works and some little details that people didn't really cover, at least as far as the videos that I've seen so far. So let's get into it. In this first image here, you will see that using the battery pack, I was able to get my phone from 0 to 51%. This is while not using the device, just putting it on and letting it charge up. 5 minutes later, then I attached it to the wall charger and I let it charge all the way up to 100%. And then you will see I put the battery pack on the phone and plugged in and to see how long that would take, and that was about 3 hours later. Then both were at 100%. This is to show you the 12-hour screen on time is that total screen on time I got here. But if you look at the right hand side, which is with the battery pack attached, and you'll notice down here at the bottom there are kind of spots where that bottom line cuts, and that's because what will happen is the battery pack the phone will use some of its battery, and then the battery pack, and then the phone, and then the battery pack, and back and forth. And you can see right there in these lines I have about 5 to 6 hours of screen on time. And you'll see here I have 7 hours and 20 minutes of screen on time, and the phone is down to 8% with an additional 3 hours and 19 minutes right there. This is another image showing then at a half an hour later it was down to 5%. At 1% left there was 4 hours and 23 minutes. It died about 7 minutes later, so I got about 4.5 hours this time. And keep in mind, that's heavier usage, but I get an additional about anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, which is about a 50% increase in battery power on my iPhone 12 Pro Max while using the battery case. So that's the coverage of using it when it's both are at 100% and they're going back and forth, and it will draw from the battery pack and then the phone and then the battery pack and then the phone and then the battery pack and then the phone. So after covering the numbers there, where you'll see that how it works as far as if you put the battery pack on when both are at 100% and you use them, and what it will do as far as going back and forth between the devices, drawing battery from either the phone or the battery pack and back and forth, and the total battery life you get there. And so in a normal day I get about 12 hours from my iPhone, 10 to 12 hours. And with this I am getting anywhere from an additional 4 to 6 hours. So I end up usually getting anywhere from 14 to 18 hours in total. So on a normal day where I might get 10 hours on this, I'm looking at closer to about that 14 and a half to 15 hours of screen on time. And on a day where I might get 12 hours of screen on time, because let's say I'm inside on Wi-Fi and I'm not using the cameras a ton, I'm watching video, I'm looking at closer to that 18-hour screen on time, 17 to 18 hours of screen on time. The next scenario where I've used this and I took some screenshots, but it's a little bit difficult to kind of show because you have the back and forth like I was talking about, but it's not as consistent as exactly when it does it because it depends on what you're doing. So I noticed in one scenario what will happen is the phone will go down from 100% to 75% and the battery pack will kick in, and then the battery pack will dwindle down, and then the phone will once the battery pack kind of gets down to 75%, then it'll go back to the phone for the next 25% on the phone, and back and forth until the battery pack dies first, and then the phone will use the rest of its charge. The other things I've noticed is if I charge both the battery pack and the phone at the same time by putting the battery pack on the phone, plugging the battery pack in, and it charges up the phone, and then it will charge up the battery pack, and then I take it off, is that it will drain down to about the 85% on the phone, and then the battery pack will kick in, and it will charge up to the phone up to 100%, drawing from the battery while you're using it, and then it will just kind of hold the phone at 99% until the battery pack is dead, and then of course the phone will take over, and then you can take the battery pack off, plug it in. It takes about an hour to charge up on its own, and then get more use out of it. The other thing I noticed is kind of a difference in the numbers that I'm getting whether I put the battery pack on at 100% and just let them go back and forth versus if I let the phone dwindle all the way down to almost dead and put the battery pack on and allow it to basically fight to charge up the phone while also using it. And what I've noticed is if I put the battery pack on and have them both be at 100%, I'm getting that closer to 5 to 6 hour additional screen on time, an additional about 50% screen on time. Where I notice if you put it on at the low end, it tends to show that 0 to 51% like I showed in the screenshot there, but I tend to only actually get an additional hour less, and it's that range where the lower end of the battery tends to be the part that drains at a different rate than kind of that middle 25 to 75%. And so I did a test and I put the battery pack on when my phone was at 29%, and it charged all the way up to that 80%. And then I used the phone again, and it kind of showed that middle range is where the optimal kind of drain is, where you get the long part of it. It's that first kind of that 0 to 25% that charges at a slower rate, and it drains at a different rate, and then kind of the 80 to 100% is the same thing. So a couple other things I wanted to touch on is people talking about only getting about 35% charge out of this thing while they're using it. One of the things that I think we need to consider is that when they're doing that, they're using the device, and nobody seems to be showing the usage and the screen on time that they're getting while they're using it. They're talking about once it's charged up, I'm getting an additional 35%, but you're drawing from it at the same time because your phone is, dead, or your phone's at the percentage where it's going to draw from the battery pack because the phone is low enough, and that software integration in there. So let's talk a little bit about that too. So for me, it's worth the $99, and I will tell you why here. Reason number one, I've used some of the alternatives, and now my experience may be different than other people's. But for example, I used a third-party one on the 12 mini that I had before I gave it to my wife, and it brought the battery health down from 100 to about 95% in a very short amount of time. And she continued to use it after that, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, maybe my experience with it was a little bit different. And she was using it with it connected wireless and wired plugged in, and her battery health is now down to 89% using a third-party one. That, because it doesn't have that chip that Apple put into the MagSafe battery pack, their MagSafe battery pack, that monitors the temperature, monitors the wattage input, and kind of optimizes that to hopefully help with battery health and prevent it from causing some issues. In, less than 6 months, losing more than 10% battery health means by a year it will be down to around 80%, if not less, and we will be looking at getting a battery replacement. And it's kind of up to Apple whether they replace that, whether that's replaced under warranty or not, because I don't know if they'll be able to see that, I didn't use their charger, and that, this third-party one isn't designed well with a standard for heat dissipation, and it caused the battery to overheat, because there's no way for Apple to control that charge that's being brought in. They can control the wattage that's allowed and stuff like that, but the third party, though, it's up to the battery pack to dissipate its own heat and not potentially cause that to transfer to the back of your device. I have used the Anker one, and I actually ended up tossing the one that I had, because there were some issues with, I wasn't getting very good battery life out of that at all using it. I was getting about an additional 3 hours of screen on time consistently, and it was getting quite hot, and it just didn't hold on very well. And so I ended up tossing it. I just got so frustrated that I threw it out. And if you read the Amazon reviews, they're quite mixed, but I suggest you go look at the low star ratings at the people that may have bought them, because I know some of the ratings on there are from, people that didn't really use them for extended periods of time, or they used battery packs plugged in, or it's not even for the new 5K magnetic battery pack. The other thing about that is it's not MagSafe certified, which means that while it's using magnets, it doesn't get the ability to use 15 watts while plugged into the wall like Apple's does. And so that's a huge advantage to me, because if I throw it on there, the way that I will be using this is both at 100% typically, and just use it, if I'm going away, that's where I'm going to need it, being out and about. I'm going to throw it on there, have it in my pocket, take it out, not worry about having to find it, and just use it till the battery pack dies, and then till my phone dies. And the ability to just plug in with one cable and have it charge up my phone at the 15 watts and then charge it up is really nice, not having to worry about, okay, is one going to be charged or not, having to use 2 cables, having to carry 2 cables around, having to physically turn it on is another thing that's different with this. And so just some of the software differences and the heat dissipation, the efficiency of charge, which I figured to be around 65 to 70%, where a lot of the battery packs that I've tested, the couple other Chinese brand third-party ones and the Anker, are around 50 to 55% efficiency. So even if they are, 50% higher actual capacitive rating, because they are getting so much lower efficiency, I found that I was getting less energy out of them to make my battery last longer, having to physically turn it on and then physically turn it off if the phone's getting hot, where Apple's is allowed to work with their software and fully integrate with it. It's much slimmer than most of the other ones out there. There are some super slim ones from brands that I've never heard of, and ones where the ratings are kind of mostly low, and pricing is very similar to some of the $30 to $50 ones that tend to get a little bit better rating that are from known brands. And so I don't know, to me, the peace of mind of not having to potentially shell out to replace my built-in battery, if it's beyond warranty, or if Apple says, well, you used a third-party one and that was what caused the problem and that's not going to be covered under warranty, or if they're nice enough to replace it, but then let's say, it's beyond that additional year and you haven't paid for Apple Care Plus, which, keep in mind, if you're paying for Apple Care Plus, then with the idea that if I use a third-party one, I'm going to be protected, that's an additional cost right there, of, so much per month. So you have to take that into play. You also have to take into play that if you already have the 20-watt charger for your iPhone, you can use that with this, where if you look at some of the other third-party ones, you're going to have to buy an even higher wattage to charge them fast, or they're going to take 3 hours to recharge. And in that time, I could recharge my MagSafe battery pack while using the phone, and then connect and, get 2 hours draw out of the phone, an hour on the charger, plug it in, and essentially I've doubled my iPhone's battery life with the Apple one in the same amount of time that the Anchor one is taking to recharge. And so this is kind of my thoughts on it. For me, it's the peace of mind that since Apple made it and there's that software integration, there's the auto shut off if your phone's getting hot, there's a pop-up notification you get in the cameras that says, hey, move it out of the way. It might interfere with your flash, because, on the smaller device in particular, because of the spacing there. And even alternative third-party ones from Anchor and like CH Tech and some of these other companies out there, Mophie, are going to be even bigger yet, or you're not going to get that notification. You're not going to get the auto shut off. The battery itself might dwindle down to help with heat, but there's no physical chip to kind of communicate to the phone and for the phone to say, hey, I'm getting hot, draw back on power. Also, if you're the type of person that wants to just carry one cable and you're going to, be at the hotel and plug and want to charge both at once, the third-party ones, most of them are going to limit. The battery pack itself may charge at 20 watts or more, but your phone's only going to receive 5 watts. And so for me to be able to plug in and know that I can get the full MagSafe 15 watts charge to my phone, and then also the battery pack will then recharge in about an hour and 15 minutes. And so I can charge up my phone, battery pack in 3 hours in the same time that it takes just some of these third-party ones that are giving less additional charge, is a substantial reason to me, and to not have to potentially shell out maybe a couple $100 to replace the battery. If you're talking about a 20% battery health reduction every year, and they will, if you have Apple Care Plus and it's covered under warranty, replace it a couple times. But again, what happens when you're out of warranty? You know, you're beyond Apple Care Plus. I don't know about how that works. If Apple can see that you were not using their charger, and just the unknown risk because the features are not there. So $99 or $49 for Anchor brand, you know, $30 for ones that I experienced even worse recharge rate and way hot temperatures with. I think the additional, you know, $60, $50, $40 is worth that peace of mind to me. Let me know what you guys think down below. I know this was a long video. For those of you who stuck it out this far, thank you for doing so. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and place any questions, kind of comments down below, and have a nice day.